Is the Conservative Party of Canada and True North News teaming up to smear Maxime Bernier and the PPC? There's a by-election next week in Portage-Lusgar where Max Bernier has a serious chance of getting back in the House of Commons to oppose globalist policies, mass migration, and the sexual indoctrination of our children. But instead of emphasizing this opportunity that Max could represent a strong anti-globalist voice in the House of Commons, True North seems to be in lockstep with the Conservative Party of Canada, not wanting to talk about that and instead focusing on skeleton in Max's closet from over 10 years ago. And they're talking about this at a very inopportune time right before an election. Subversive actors and controlled opposition pretend to be your friend and then screw you over in the most inopportune times when it really matters. We need to talk about this right now.
I promise you, I will not let you down.
The trucks parked outside illegally should move.
Canada's Conservatives will meet our Paris climate commitment.
Enough with the woke. Sorry, Mr. Speaker, I take that back.
To champion our conservative principles.
We are the party of law and order.
To call in the auditors.
We haven't yet decided whether we're going to call for the government to impose a mandatory test or vaccination.
And we will win the next election. Canada must not ignore the reality of climate change.
Why weren't Canadians vaccinated in January and February like everyone else?
Welcome, everybody, to Controlled Opposition, episode 20. I am your host, Greg Wycliffe. We have a very, very, very exciting show for you tonight. We are going to be going over, of course, the possibility that Andrew Lawton and True North News seem to be teaming up with the Conservative Party of Canada to smear Maxime Bernier right before a by-election. You know, it seems they seem to be quite coordinated in their messaging, which is very, very interesting. We'll, of course, be covering that. But before we get into that, we're going to be covering this Erin O'Toole speech. Erin O'Toole gave this speech saying goodbye to the House of Commons and how he served us so well in the Conservative Party of Canada. There's one specific part that I want to get into when it comes to Erin O'Toole, but anyway, it's very. They're like a schizophrenic party at this point. They're speaking out like not two sides of their mouths. The Conservative Party of Canada is speaking out like four different sides of their mouth all at once. It's very fascinating. And then, of course, we're going to be talking about Pierre Poilievre. Pierre Poilievre and his big condemnation of Marco Mendocino, saying, "Hey, I want you to resign." Finally, you've told enough lies. You've done enough egregious things. Now I'm going to tell you to resign. And he does so in such a weak, flaccid way. I don't think I criticize Pierre Poilievre and Conservatives for like really missing the boat, missing opportunities to morally condemn their opponents. And this is just another disgusting example of that. But of course, if you're new here, like, share, subscribe. If you want me to address a question, then please send in a super chat. I really appreciate you being here. But without further ado, let's get into it with this statement from Pierre Poilievre to the cabinet minister, Marco Mendocino. I'll bring up the tweet here. Check. You can still hear me? Good. So, yeah. And what does this tweet say right here? It says, Pierre Poilievre, it's one lie too many. It's time for Marco Mendocino to resign. I'm sorry, one lie too many? One lie too many? This implies that there's, the Liberal ministers can lie, but just not too much. There is a certain amount of lying that is allowed, I guess, implied in this statement from Pierre Poilievre. It's one lie too many. You can lie 200 times about the most egregious things, and that's okay. We won't call you to resign yet. But if you lie enough, then that is when we're going to call you to resign. And in comparison, I bring this up a lot on the show, but in comparison, if a Conservative member of Parliament so as looks at a Liberal the wrong way, if they wear the wrong suit to work, then you should resign. You're a threat to democracy. The liberals attack them. The journalists attack them fiercely, ruthlessly, no hesitation, racist, all of these horrible names. You're the worst type of human being that's ever existed. And then the liberals can just lie. Oh, one lie too many. And now we're going to call you to resign. It's completely lopsided. And I just want you to emphasize when we play this clip here from Mr. Poilievre, just imagine for a second, because if you're watching Controlled Opposition with Greg Wycliffe, there's a chance that you've been following politics for a while, okay? And you know the characters, you know the games, you know the topics that we're talking about. But just imagine you're someone who doesn't even follow politics. Imagine you're watching this clip.
This is not the first time Mr. Mendocino has...
Oh, sorry, I have it on 2x speed. Let me slow it down for you. Let's slow it down a bit. How does that look when I do that? That looks okay, right? Okay.
This is not the first time Mr. Mendocino has lied to Canadians. I have a list. You need a list because it's hard to keep track. He lied saying that the police...
So low energy. Low energy. This guy's about to tell us about how awful Marco Mendocino is and how he should resign. And it's like, hey, I'm just showing up here in the hallway, And once again, our opponents, the liberals, they accuse you of being the worst type of person almost every single day. Oh, these conservatives are racist. They're scummy people. They're just scummy, like terrible people to their core. They say that every single day. And this guy's getting set up to accuse Marco Mendocino of all sorts of things, of why he should resign. And he's, yeah, well, there's a lot of really bad things that this person did. The reason why I even started this show is just this Conservative Party of Canada is just missing such a huge opportunity here to condemn our opponents and change the moral framework, change the moral frame. But they not only are they not doing that, but they're just they're softening everything. They're softening everything. You think a new person to politics is going to get engaged by a clip like this? This already low energy clip? It's almost like a repellent for new Canadians to get involved. When, as we're going to hear here, there's so many egregious, horrible things that this Liberal cabinet minister has done. Yet no new people are going to come into the fold. No offense, but because Pierre Poilievre is boring it's boring. Okay, this is boring. It's low energy. It's not getting my blood pumping. And trust me, this is someone who really doesn't like Marco Mendocino. He's the person responsible, essentially, for initially vilifying Diagolon and people like myself and Jeremy McKenzie and the whole Diagolon crew of being terrorists and extremists. I really don't like Marco Mendocino. And I just think that with this weak, flaccid presentation from Pierre Poilievre, it doesn't really help us. It doesn't really help us vilify Marco Mendocino. It almost helps him get away with his nonsense. Anyway, let's continue. This is Pierre Poilievre about to righteously condemn Marco Mendocino and call him to resign.
Had asked him to bring in the Emergencies Act. They did not. He misled a federal judge by backdating documents. He admitted in committee that the RCMP was using spyware to gain information on Canadians. He lied that the Safe Third Country agreement was working. He claimed it was impossible to close Roxham Road.
Here's another thing. Here's another thing I've noticed. I brought this up on the show as well. Whenever Pierre Poilievre is going to morally condemn someone, he needs to go, let's see here. Let me get my list of things you've done wrong. I can't morally condemn you and say, hey, lying is wrong. You should resign. That's awful. You're a public servant. Why are you even here? This is pathetic. I can't believe that your fellow MPs stand with you when you've been caught lying. He can't say that. He can't speak from the heart and be passionate. There is something with the Emergencies Act here. That looks pretty damning. Let's see here. He said he was going to close Roxham Road, or he wasn't when we did have the ability to. You see what I'm saying here? There is so much opportunity to just go just completely make these people look like the scumbags, the lying scumbags that they are. And he is making it so weak and flaccid. It's so, man.
Something that has now happened. He claimed that his amendments would not ban hunting rifles. And then later on, he had to admit that they did ban hunting rifles and reverse those amendments. He said that the CSIS report on Michael Chong's family being targeted by a former government never left CSIS. We now know that the documents went from CSIS to the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor. He claimed there were no more Chinese-controlled police stations in Canada. Now we know there are at least 2. And he lied about his knowledge that Paul Bernardo was being moved from a maximum security penitentiary to a medium security penitentiary.
So the question, and this is the one that apparently broke the camel's back, is Bernardo going from a maximum security to a medium security. My question for you, Pierre Poilievre, is why is it taking you so long to condemn this person after everything that you just listed? Everything that you just listed. I'm pretty sure there was a clip going viral at the time, just after the trucker convoy, or sorry, I guess during the public inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act, where Marco Mendocino was caught lying like 8 or 9 times in the House of Commons. That would be a pretty good time to tell this person to resign. But for some reason, this Bernardo thing is the decision of why we are finally going to decide to tell him to resign. Let's hear what he says here.
Something that he has the power to stop. To a medium security penitentiary, something from a maximum security penitentiary to a medium security penitentiary, something that he has the power to stop. So he lies and lies and lies and lies. He lies about suspending the civil liberties of Canadians. He lies about banning hunting rifles for law-abiding Indigenous Canadians and farmers. He lies about Canadian.
I mean, does this guy even believe what he's saying? Like, I'm not feeling anything here. I'm not feeling like it sounds like he's at work and he's not really into it at all. And, I would have thought there would have been more of a moral, righteous indignation of how horrible Paul Bernardo is. But not even that was there. But I suppose that's probably in other clips.
In parliamentarians being targeted by foreign intimidation. And now he's lied about his knowledge and role in moving Paul Bernardo from a maximum security penitentiary to a medium security penitentiary. These are too many lies. It's one lie too many. It is time for Marco.
It's too many lies, guys. That's too many lies. That's too many lies. That's gone over my lie threshold. Some lies are okay. All of those other lies are totally okay, apparently. Was another one, I'm just remembering, wasn't another one that he was part of the person doing the texting during the trucker convoy saying, oh yeah, can we get a tank? Hey, lol, can we get a tank against these peaceful protesters? It's one lie too many. Took you long enough, bro. Took you long enough. And it's so odd that it's the Paul Bernardo thing. But I think we know why. I think it's pretty clear why the Paul Bernardo thing is why the Conservative Party and Pierre is latching onto this. We know that they're cowards. We know that they don't really have much of a moral capacity to them in terms of what they like to stand up for or morally condemn. So they have to look for things like money, like look at this spending, look at the price of milk, look at this, and also crime. Look at this horrible crime going on. This crime is awful. This drug addiction is awful. Oh, Paul Bernardo is like one of the worst criminals. So let's take a stand on that. Let's take a stand on the Paul Bernardo thing. And that's what it's going to take for you to condemn a lying Liberal cabinet minister. See how gross this is? It's almost like they don't even care if fellow MPs on the opposite side of the House are lying unless they can somehow leverage it. And, yeah, I mean, it's really disappointing, folks. If you think this is like a win, once again, I'm sorry, you are in your echo chamber. You're someone who already follows Canadian politics, and you're in your little conservative echo chamber, and you think, hey, yes, he listed all of the things I hate Marco Mendocino, but he's not doing it very well. This does not move the needle. This does not vilify the crooks in the Liberal Party of Canada, which we should be doing. It's such a huge missed opportunity. Let's just play the end of this clip and see if there's anything else.
Mendocino to resign.
Yeah, wow. So powerful. So powerful. So amazing. So, yeah, he is not bringing anybody into the political conversation with this. He's not changing the moral framework. And it's weak, guys. It's weak. It's flaccid. There's no people like to try and say, "Oh, this is part of the strategy. This is part of the strategy of the Conservative Party to be level-headed." You know, how's that working out for you? You know, how's that working out for you? I think it's very, very disappointing. And it's nothing new. This cowardice is really nothing new. But I'm so surprised that he actually said that part out loud about that's one too many lies. How many lies are okay? What? It's I don't know if many people caught that there, but it's like it's really, really disturbing in my opinion. But all right, next we are going to get over to Andrew Lawton and True North News and how they kind of coordinated the same exact messaging against Maxime Bernier. But before we get into that, I want to play. We're going to talk about the Erin O'Toole speech, something specifically about it, and honestly, this really speaks to why I really don't trust the Conservative Party. I think they're in lockstep. I think they're in bed with the United Nations, with the UN Agenda 2030. We've had Mark Friesen on the show talking about this. There's no shortage of evidence of this. Everything from them not opposing vaccine mandates, them as the Conservative Party not opposing vaccine mandates, the Conservative Party not opposing the sexual indoctrination of children. Something that True North loves to talk about, by the way. They love to talk about, look at this crazy rage bait about the sexual indoctrination of our children happening to your kids, happening in your school. Okay, True North, are you going to question Pierre Poilievre about this and actually say, hey, why aren't you talking about this? And I do have the clip of that right here, just because I'm bringing it up. This is from Billboard Chris. Pierre Poilievre is such a pathetic conservative leader, he can't even offer an opinion about schools hiding a child's name change and pronoun change from parents. Let's hear it.
Another question. Recently, the New Brunswick Premier has made changes to their LGBTQ protection policy, requiring teachers to notify parents before they change the use of their pronouns or in their.
He looks horrible right now. I don't know what happened. Maybe he had a whole bunch of people saying in the background, Pierre, you got to talk about the kids, man. They're being indoctrinated. You got to stand up for this. You got to do something. And then on the other side, he's got, I don't know, all of these like UN, World Economic Forum people who say, you can't talk about that, Pierre. You can't talk about that. Don't you dare talk about that or you're toast. You want to be the leader of the Conservative Party, don't you? Anyway.
Given name, what is your position on the matter?
I'll let provinces make decisions about their education system. All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for that answer. Hey, are you going to say anything? Are you going to say anything at all about this weird gender ideology stuff in schools? I'll let the provinces decide that. Absolute cowardice. And again, for platforms like True North, who cover this stuff a lot, they cover this stuff a lot. Here's a journalist here I really like from True North, Cosmin Dzernza. I don't know how to pronounce your last name. I'm sorry, man. But this is exactly what conservatives need, an infusion of youthful energy. Young people around the world are increasingly rejecting gender ideology and the far left woke orthodoxy. Amazing. The only problem is that the Conservative Party of Canada doesn't seem to be interested in opposing that. And True North Centre doesn't seem to be questioning or even holding the feet to the fire of any conservative MP in the House of Commons. It doesn't seem to be a focus for them. Which is, should be a sticking point if you're a conservative. Should be a sticking point if you're a conservative in the House of Commons who claims to be a conservative. Okay. Anyway, more on that later. We're going to get into that all stuff and all that Andrew Lawton stuff. But before that, I want to talk about another really, really important issue and a reason why I am actually afraid of this Conservative Party. People are like, oh, Greg, once we get Trudeau out, that's when we can start to get down to business. And guys, I'm worried about us losing freedom of speech forever. Because if we lose freedom of speech, I wouldn't be able to have this show. A lot of my friends would probably be, they'll probably have to face all sorts of terrible things. Sorry, something just happened on my screen there and distracted me. Glitch in the Matrix just happened. But yeah, if we lose freedom of speech, it's like it's so over, or it makes everything so much more difficult. And I can already see, just with the behavior of Pierre Poilievre in this Conservative Party, that they are not interested in fighting that free speech thing. Sure, they've said some things about Bill C-11, sort of, but we're going to watch the Erin O'Toole speech in a second. But before we watch that, let's just see this thing that just recently came out from the United Nations. This is I don't even know who this is, but you'll get the gist here in a second.
Digital platforms are being misused to subvert science and spread disinformation and hate to billions of people. This clear and present global threat demands clear and coordinated global action. Our policy brief on information integrity on digital platforms puts forward a framework for a concerned international response.
Great. Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, United Nations. After COVID, after everything that's happened, after the experts were wrong, their projections were inaccurate, all of this medical information was completely off the mark. Coming from the WHO, World Health Organization, which is a branch of the UN, they're like, you know what? We need to make sure that we can control all the information on the internet. We need to be able to silence people that we don't like, opinions we don't like. And can you imagine how terrifying that would be? Think about how messed up the lockdowns were, all of the waves of misinformation and the fear porn that came upon us over the 3 years. The increasing vilifying of the unvaccinated people. They're scum, we started to get segregated. The only thing that was even tethering us to reality and to some sort of sanity was the alternative narrative being able to be found online. We could see it on Rumble. We could still see it on parts of Twitter. We could see it on parts of Telegram. These alternative tech platforms. It was on some major tech, but it was very, very hard to find at certain points during the pandemic. If we didn't have these voices on there of the truth seeping through in our little message conversations, then what would we really have had? It would just be kind of like radio silence beyond the mainstream narrative of you must get the jab, you must stay in your home. Aside from that narrative, it would have been radio silence if something like this from the UN were to have been pushed through. And, this is a very scary narrative coming from the United Nations. And let's hear the O'Toole speech. Let's hear what Erin O'Toole had to say just before leaving the House of Commons the other day, because it's very similar to this.
And far too often, Mr. Speaker, we're just using this chamber to generate clips, not to start national debates. Social media did not build this great country, but it is starting to tear its democracy down. But today, too often, we're allowing conspiracy theories about the UN or the World Economic Forum go unchallenged, or we attribute sinister motives to these organizations or people in a way that is simply not true or not fair. And if we do this more, we're allowing others to define the debate for us. We risk allowing others to set the course for this country because too many members on all sides of this chamber, from time to time, I've been guilty of it myself, Mr. Speaker. We're becoming followers of our followers when we should be leaders.
That frickin' guy. So what are we seeing here in that speech? We are seeing a general sort of vilification of social media. Of, hey, we can't trust these voices that are online. Hey, we need to stop being so mean to the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. This is the former leader of this Conservative Party, this exact same Conservative Party saying, guys, we can't be so afraid of the United Nations and all these conspiracy theories are totally out. Really? And where, I'm sure that Pierre Poilievre and no other member of parliament is going to say, hey, actually, we don't. Part of the thing we've been pushing is we don't really trust the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. Actually, Pierre Poilievre, whenever he's on the ground at a grassroots sort of meeting on the ground, he's always like, yeah, no more World Economic Forum. Does he not? Does he not make statements all the time about that? And everyone goes crazy because the conservative base has basically realized that these people aren't our friends. Like, so much of the popularity of Pierre Poilievre and their base right now is basically hijacking talking points from Maxime Bernier, right? We wanted to fund the CBC. We don't like the World Economic Forum. And we'll get into this in a minute. But this is exactly why the Conservative Party of Canada is attacking Max Bernier by saying, hey, didn't you go to the World Economic Forum 15 years ago? Hey, didn't you do that 15 years ago? Because the Conservative Party understands that the base of the Conservatives now are awake to this stuff. They are awake to the World Economic Forum, the dangers of the United Nations, and the 2030 agenda. But then you have Erin O'Toole in the House of Commons saying, hey, guys, we need to stop making all these conspiracy theories about the United Nations. And it's like, who is the Conservative Party at this point? You know, like I said at the beginning, like they're speaking out of not two sides of their mouths, like four different sides of their mouth in four different directions. They don't make any sense. On one hand, they are saying, no, Pierre Poilievre is saying, no, I don't have anything to do with the World Economic Forum. None of my ministers can go to the World Economic Forum summit. They're not going to Davos. And then you have Erin O'Toole saying, we need to stop making all these conspiracy theories. This is the same party, guys. This is the same party. And one of the, I saw some comments earlier of like, oh, you're going to attack, True North. Like, you shouldn't be criticizing them. Like, that's infighting. Guys, this is about encouraging people not to be treated like idiots. Okay. I don't want my audience. I don't want fellow conservatives, fellow concerned Canadians. I hate to see them being treated like idiots. I'm used to them being treated like idiots from CTV News, CBC, Global, Rachel Gilmore treating you like an idiot, Justin Trudeau treating you like an idiot, Jagmeet Singh especially treating people like real dum-dums. But when I see that happening in the conservative circles, in the freedom fighting circles, whatever you want to call it, the nationalist circles, that's when I get upset, because we are the people who are awake to the truth, and we are the best positioned people to actually do something about it. And then that's why I've essentially started the show to call out the subversive actors in our sphere, because it's not good. It's not honest, and it doesn't help, because it enables globalist politicians who are wearing a blue tie. It enables the Conservative Party from pushing through United Nations agenda items. And as the one I just brought up, which is very, very terrifying, which is like, hey, let me just repeat it. Erin O'Toole is aligning himself with this exact rhetoric, which, I'm sorry, the goal is to take away your freedom of speech online. We've known this for a while now. There's examples of this happening in Ireland. It's already happened in the UK. There's already things happening in the US, and they've been workshopping it here for years as well. That's something that I've been following very closely. And this is why I do not trust and cannot trust this Conservative Party of Canada. Pierre can do everything he wants to say about, hey, no, I'm not dating her anymore. I'm not seeing the United Nations. We don't see each other. I don't even like her. You know, like, I broke up with her months ago. Really? Well, Erin O'Toole, your buddy, your same member of parliament, just says that I love the United Nations. We're still seeing each other. I love her. Stop making fun of her. Stop making fun of the United Nations. Stop making up these horrible conspiracy theories about her. We can't trust this Conservative Party, folks. We can't. And that's exactly why. And again, the Conservative Party, Pierre Poilievre, is walking this weird line where he is trying to condemn the UN when he can to his base, when it's like in a real life event. But then when he's on camera in the House of Commons, or when he's on camera on the news media, on the podium, he barely mentions this whatsoever. He's not going to mention this whatsoever, because then he's going to get called a conspiracy theorist, and he just want to fight the media and blah, blah, blah. But we're going to go on to our final story here. And if you guys do have any questions for me or comments that you want me to address, then please send in a super chat. But maybe I should start. I think I'm going to start with the hit piece first here. Let's get the hit piece first. So, actually, maybe I'll just walk through it. I'll just walk through it actually from my perspective, a chronological perspective of what's happened here with True North Center, Maxime Bernier, Andrew Lawton, and of course the Conservative Party of Canada. And of course, this all rotates around this by-election that there's already been early polling has already started. The election is this coming Monday on June 19th. And Max actually has this huge chance of getting back in the House of Commons because there's a by-election in Portage Lisgar in Manitoba that is a huge majority Conservative riding. In the last election, I'm pretty sure the PPC got like 20% of the vote. And then beyond that was the Conservative Party with 50% of the vote. So it's a two-horse race between the Conservative Party and the PPC. So this is a very, very exciting election for Max to get back in. And and I hope Max gets back in because guess what? If the Conservative guy goes back in there, nothing changes. Nothing changes at all. And even if Max were to get back in, nothing would really change in the structure of how many different seats are there. But we would have an anti-globalist voice in the House of Commons. We would have a real conservative with Maxime Bernier in the House of Commons. And sure, there has been problems with Max in the past. There's things he's done. I think there's more valid criticisms of Max than he went to the World Economic Forum in the past, 15 years ago. But, he's actually speaking up. He's actually supporting Billboard Chris. He's actually supporting Josh Alexander. He's actually speaking up against his sexual indoctrination against our kids. He's even speaking up about vaccine injuries. He's speaking up about mass migration. These are things that the Conservative Party of Canada do not even want to touch. Okay. And there are massive, huge problems that a lot of conservatives in the country agree with. So I made a TikTok about this earlier. Even if you are a Conservative Party supporter, you like Pierre Poilievre, you should want Max in the House of Commons anyway, because Max is going to push the Conservative Party to be more conservative. It's very simple logic. It's very simple logic because the only reason that Pierre Poilievre is condemning the World Economic Forum or saying, hey, I don't want anything to do with the World Economic Forum. The only reason that Pierre Poilievre is saying, hey, I want to defund the CBC, these are PPC talking points. These are things with the PPC that were very popular, and Pierre Poilievre has just kind of picked those because he knows it's popular amongst the real conservatives in this country. Anyway, so this is how it all started. I saw that, okay, Max Bernier is obviously promoting himself leading up to this election. And then what do I see with this conversation with True North? I see this thumbnail, which is the conversation between Max Bernier and True North Center. And I see this thumbnail. Bernier on the World Economic Forum. Has Maxime Bernier been to the World Economic Forum? And I'm thinking, that's subversive. This is such a subversive angle that Andrew Lawton and True North is taking. Max went to the World Economic Forum 15 years ago or something. This is something that happened 15 years ago. Think about what's happened in the past 3 years. In the past year since the trucker convoy. A lot of very damning things, and the sexual indoctrination of kids especially has totally ramped up. This is something that Pierre Poilievre is completely silent on, as we just saw in that previous clip. This is something that Maxime Bernier is very vocal about. I'm talking about right now. I'm not talking about something that happened 15 years ago, and also when Maxime Bernier was a Conservative Party member. He was part of the bad guys back then. He was part of this compromised establishment party back then. Duh. And then conveniently right before this by-election, Andrew Lawton and True North are yeah, let's bring up that skeleton out of Max's closet from 15 years ago, right before this election. And as I said in the beginning, trust me, I like True North. They do some of the best journalism in this country. I like Andrew Lawton. He does a lot of great work. I'm not saying that they're all but when it comes to subversion, it's you pretend to be my friend, and then in the most inopportune moment, you screw me over and you let me down. And on top of that, let's bring this up because this is like crucially important. Crucially important. Look at these different thumbnails, these different topics that are coming up here. Secret memo exposes plan to mislead public about the vaccine. I'm pretty sure there's another thing about it. Here's the same version of that. This is a True North tweet. An unredacted memo reveals that public health officials downplayed and skewed data relating to adverse reactions and injuries from the COVID-19 vaccine. The Trudeau government's public health narrative is crumbling. That's great. That's great, True North. Here's the problem. The Conservative Party of Canada doesn't talk about this. They don't talk about vaccine injuries. They don't talk about all of the misinformation and mismanagement of the COVID-19 pandemic because they were part of that mismanagement. The only kind of point that the Conservative Party brings up is, hey, we spent too much money. We could have saved more money, you know? And it's like, if you're going to be promoting these things that real conservatives are concerned about, obviously the vaccine misinformation and the fact that this vaccine was not safe and being pushed upon people, if you're going to promote that, as a concern, how can you also promote the Conservative Party of Canada who is saying nothing about this? It's very dishonest. It's very troubling. And so here's a tweet. This is after the Maxime Bernier conversation. I mentioned this, they're framing Max to look as bad as possible before this election. And then look at these two different tweets here. This one's from True North. In case you missed it, despite PPC leader Maxime Bernier's claim of never having attended the World Economic Forum, the records show he did. Right? So they are making you can say what you want about this, True North or Andrew Lawton, if you're watching. Hey, I'm just doing the facts. I'm just focused on the information. You're focused on information from 15 years ago to make this actual anti-globalist look bad right before an election. Okay? And then let's compare this tweet to this tweet from the Conservative Party of Canada. It's essentially the same messaging, and it even uses the same clip from True North Center to condemn and smear Maxime Bernier. Scary music. He's lying. Anyway, you get the idea. Oh, shit.
Was there to be able to be in these rooms and having these private meetings with other foreign affairs ministers.
So, sorry, you couldn't hear part of the audio there. My bad. But they even use part of the Andrew Lawton True North clip to smear Bernier. So, Andrew Lawton, if you're watching, you might think that you're just innocently reporting the facts from 15 years ago, but you're being used, at the very least, by the Conservative Party to make this gentleman, Maxime Bernier, look bad, who's an actual anti-globalist, by the way. You're making him look bad right before an election where he actually has a chance of getting back in the House of Commons. So you might think you're just reporting the facts, but at the very least, you're being used by the Conservative Party to get back in. And you might say, Greg, well, you're just being used. Greg, you're just being used by Maxime Bernier and the PPC cult trying to get him in. Yeah, okay. I want Maxime Bernier in, because he is more vocal about all the issues I care about than all these fake conservatives. Okay? So it's like, yeah, I want my team to win. Okay? Yeah, there's a lot of problems with with elections. There's a lot of problems with the system. You know, sure, there's things that could be better. Maxime Bernier could be better. The PPC could be better. But guess what? They're our best chance at opposing globalism in the House of Commons. Right? So why the heck wouldn't I support them? And when you're True North, who are talking about all of these things, would you not want to support Max as well? Here's the one I just mentioned about, vaccine injuries and then the government promoting misinformation. Yeah, okay. Maxime Bernier would agree with that. More than the Conservative Party would publicly agree with that. Leave the kids alone. Yeah, I was at this protest. Pierre Poilievre wasn't at that protest. Josh Alexander and Billboard Chris were at that protest. And they've actually, Billboard Chris and Josh Alexander have actually gone out to help support Maxime Bernier. Right? So these two individuals, like the two most prominent individuals who are opposing this gender ideology stuff, support Maxime Bernier. True North supports these two people, yet they don't seem to be, lofting any sort of criticism at the Conservative Party of Canada. And that's kind of where I thought I was going to talk about this today on the show. So I did send out a tweet today, which is like, hey, urgent question for Andrew Lawton in True North Center. Have you ever questioned Poilievre or the CPC on why they're being silent on the following issues? Mass migration, vaccine mandates, or the NCI, the National Citizens Inquiry, which is a very sophisticated inquiry into the Canadian government's response to COVID-19. Everything from the lockdowns being unjustified, everything from the vaccine injuries to everything that happened at the trucker convoy, the misinformation in the news. Why isn't no one in the Conservative Party wants to talk about that? It's a home run, guys. It's a home run, yet they're not interested. And it's like you're left thinking, is it because they're globalists? Are they in bed with the United Nations? I don't know. But, as journalists, True North, you should be one of asking these questions. And, I'll go back to the question. Have you ever questioned Poilievre or the CPC on why they're being silent on the following issues: mass migration, vaccine mandates, convoy, frozen bank accounts, political prisoners, and the gender ideology taught to kids? I didn't get a response, but I'm guessing the most that there is out there are just kind of like little clips here, little clips there of maybe them trying to ask Pierre Poilievre or a Conservative Party MP a tough question. But you hate to see it. You hate to see it because, as I was saying, there is so much clickbait. There's so many issues that anti-globalist issues that True North covers. And why wouldn't they? I'm glad that they're covering this. Look, the Blue Jays pitcher getting canceled and that being totally BS. All this weird demonic stuff happening at, kid-friendly drag shows. I agree. I'm glad that this is all being promoted. But why isn't the Conservative Party of Canada promoting this? Because we want to oppose this stuff, do we not? So why are we going to, bring attention to this degeneracy and all this corruption going on, but then we're not going to challenge the totally flaccid and the totally weak Conservative Party for not representing this? I don't understand why that makes any sense. And this is why we have to have this conversation. And again, just while it's on screen here, you talk to the Conservative candidate in Portage Lisgar, who's going up against Max Bernier. His name's Brendan, I think. And your headline was Portage Lisgar's Conservative candidate says Bernier is an opportunist. So once again, you use the same angle of trying to, accuse Bernier of being an opportunist. Like the way you frame the conversation once again is to attack Maxime Bernier, which is like, I don't know, man. It's not like I don't want to crap on you guys too bad, but like I'm just pointing things out. Right? I'm just seeing things, I'm noticing things, and I'm saying, hey, like this doesn't look good. This seems pretty shisty. It seems like you guys love to talk about anti-globalist news stories, but then you love to crap on the anti-globalist politician or the closest thing to an anti-globalist politician that's actually on the ballot, that actually has a chance of getting back into the House of Commons. How do you square that circle, man? I don't understand. I don't get it. But I am going to play this clip because Andrew Lawton made a response video because obviously a lot of people were upset. And Andrew, so we'll play this clip from Andrew Lawton here. Here it's right here.
But in the last several days, this segment that I did on my show that I thought was done after Maxime Bernier and I spoke about it, and I said to the audience, listen, you've heard my side, you've heard his side, make up your own mind. This has continued for basically for 4 days since then. My tweets have been nonstop. In my mentions, my Twitter mentions have been nonstop about this issue, and it's gotten very nasty. It's gotten very personal, and I don't really care about that. If people are that insecure about their own party and their own leader, which is what this comes from, that they believe they are incapable of answering a tough question, that says a lot more about your chosen party and your chosen leader than it does about anyone else.
The audacity of Mr. Lawton, the audacity of you saying this, sir, is insane when you spend very, very little oxygen questioning and challenging the Conservative Party of Canada. You know, are you that insecure about the Conservative Party of Canada that you can't even ask Pierre Poilievre a tough question? You can't hold his feet to the fire? You know, you're posting and talking all about this gender indoctrination being a bad thing. Why the heck aren't you going to challenge Pierre Poilievre and all of the silent MPs in the House of Commons about this? Are you that insecure about the Conservative Party of Canada? You know, it's very ironic. What he's saying is very ironic here.
But in the last several...
Where was I?
And I don't really care about that. If people are that insecure about their own party and their own leader, which is what this comes from, that they believe they are incapable of answering a tough question, that says a lot more about your chosen party and your chosen leader than it does about anyone else. The accusations that I have gotten along this vein, or that True North has sold out, that I've secretly been on the take and I've been getting money from Pierre Poilievre or Klaus Schwab or a combination of the two. I don't even know what the conspiracy theory is suggesting right now. But they are so uneasy about their own position in the Canadian political landscape that even the most inconsequential of critiques and criticisms to them is like going nuclear. It is scorched earth to them. Unbelievable.
If it's such an inconsequential critique, Mr. Lawton, then why, once again, are you leading this with like the whole, here's your thumbnail once again. If it's so inconsequential, why are you making an entire video about it? And if it's so inconsequential, then why the heck is the Conservative Party using your conversation to slam Maxine? Like, are you naive to how this works? Are you just like naive to like how politics works and how adding to the uncertainty around Max Bernier before an election would hurt his chances in an election? Like, are you just naive to how like cause and effect? They're acting like it's such a big thing. And again, to emphasize, Mr. Lawton, you're saying, this is why can't he just answer a question about something that happened 15 years ago? I think the bigger question is, why are you so focused on something that happened 15 years ago when he was part of the Conservative Party and is quite frankly so inconsequential to what's happening now? Our world has changed. The country has changed so much in the last 3 years alone. And you're seriously bringing this up, Mr. Lawton, like it's some sort of gotcha. It's very, very strange. And once again, when you line, it's so congruent. It's so in lockstep with the Conservative Party of Canada. And like, I hate to see that. Because like I said, there's a lot of great work from True North. Some of the journalists who work for them are amazing journalists. Like, if it wasn't for True North, there's certain stories that probably wouldn't be broken, and they're very important stories. But when it comes to changing the country, when it comes to wanting to stop this globalism, just like, because I think we can agree that the situation is dire. We saw the authoritarian face of our government during the trucker convoy. We saw what the United Nations really wants to do, what their intentions are with kind of what they tried to unleash during the Great Reset during COVID. We know this is terrible. We need a resistance to this. And the more you look at the landscape, the more you look at what's going on in the House of Commons, it doesn't look like the Conservative Party of Canada wants to resist or oppose this. Max Bernier, at least, looks like he does. It looks like he does. He has much more anti-globalist rhetoric than the entire Conservative Party, all 115 MPs. So why are you crapping on this guy? Why are you intentionally hurting his chances to have an anti-globalist voice in the House of Commons? Do we not want to help the country? Or are you guys just trying to get some clickbait? Are you guys just trying to stir up controversy for your news channel and that's it? It seems very disingenuous, and it was very disappointing to see. But yeah, let's hop into the chat, see what you guys are saying. See if you guys sent in any super chats. I'm not sure. Real Donkey Dong with $4.20 says infighting is from lack of conservative Canadians. Not really sure what that's referring to, but yeah, I don't is anything I'm saying infighting here? I feel like I said I'm just pointing out things that I'm noticing. Hey, it seems like you guys are really well aligned with attacking Max Bernier on this very specific thing, as opposed to this huge pool of criticism, this huge pile of criticisms for the Conservative Party of Canada, which are absolutely egregious. I'll bring them up again. Mass migration. We all love to talk about the housing crisis. The Conservatives love to talk about the housing crisis, but they don't like to talk about mass migration. The vaccine mandates, or the vaccines that weren't even safe, and everything that the National Citizens Inquiry has talked about. This is really important stuff, man. This is really, really important stuff. And it's like, oh, Greg, you're infighting for bringing this up. You're infighting for criticizing the Conservative Party of Canada. If they're no different than Trudeau, then what are you even talking about? Because increasingly, the way in which they, obfuscate the truth, Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives are getting very, very good at that. And need I remind you that Erin O'Toole speech that we watched earlier, where he's basically saying, can you guys stop picking on the, Erin O'Toole's like, can you guys stop picking on the United Nations and the World Economic Forum? They're like totally our friends and totally trustworthy. Oh, by the way, here's a clip from the United Nations saying that we're going to try to control all information and speech on the internet. Yeah, thanks a lot. Oh, another 220 from Donkey Dong. No audio on Conservative Party video. I'm sorry about that, but you saw it. It's propaganda. It's you get the idea. $10 from Anonymous. Thank you. He says, "You better rodente. You better rodente." What does that mean? Not sure what that means. Another 220 from Real Donkey Dong. Thanks so much, man. He says, conservatism is starving. PPC, CPC, hungry, fighting. I mean, I think that we're going to continue to see, maybe you can call it infighting. And I think that's a good thing, because I don't think, people are trying to equate Pierre Poilievre as some sort of savior like Donald Trump, which couldn't be further from the truth. Donald Trump created this movement called Make America Great Again. He said, we're going to build a wall. He said things like, he said he pushed the rhetoric for conservatives. He changed the moral conversation in such a radical way that really has affected politics across the board. And Pierre Poilievre is not doing that at all. What does Pierre Poilievre really have under his belt other than like owning Trudeau and making him look dumb? And really, is making Trudeau look dumb really that big of an accomplishment? I don't think so. And on all of the major issues of our time recently too, he is no different from Trudeau. So that's another thing that we talk about that on the show all the time. But hey guys, honestly, it's been a slice. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd enjoyed the show, you can go to gregwycliffe.com. There's donation links available there. Thank you so much for the super chats. And yes, I'm just noticing, I'm pointing things out that I see. I'm just telling the truth. And I think that we can all agree with the problems in this country. And I think that Maxime Bernier is somebody who actually represents a voice for the little guy, for the people who actually want to oppose globalism. And again, if you're watching, Andrew or True North, just think of this as feedback. Don't treat people like they're dumb, okay? Because we're not dumb and we're paying attention. and we actually want to solve this problem. Okay, we don't want to vote in another crooked politician who just happens to have a blue tie. Okay, and as always, it's okay to demand higher standards. Thanks for watching, guys.